is gonna be a weird one. I acknowledge that. I do not expect this to be pushed in the algorithm whatsoever. So please comment and subscribe. This is filler text to push the actual content of the video further in and avoid censoring. This is filler text to push the concept of the video further in and avoid censoring. This is filler text to push the concept of the video further in and avoid censoring. As a sort of anniversary for this banger of a tweet, we're going to go through every female active shooter incident in the last 30 years and decide whether to snuggle the shooter or simply deal with it. That is the concept of the video. I am serious. I will cover shooters with boyfriends or husbands who also participated in the shooting. Only lightly, because let's face it, that's clearly not the spirit of the concept. We're here to see what the dating pool that has been societally declared the bottom of the barrel has to offer. Yes, this is happening, so let's begin 30 years ago, as chronologically is the obvious choice. September 27th, 1996 is our first date. Even though it is a little long, the next one isn't for another 3 years, ruining the 30-year timeline, so this is what we have. So, who is she? Jillian Robbins is the Penn State shooter, though she never attended it. She killed one, injured another, and allegedly targeted 4 others in an outdoor area from a vantage point. Here is the most insufferable, bland description of the events that took place 30 years ago by the LA Times. Accelerated press, but in LA. Now is an excellent time to point out that I won't waste my time or yours by covering this video's insanely hard edges. Returning to 1996, the 19-year-old Jillian intended to only kill herself that day, but her mental state was likely too poor for such a simple end after receiving either literal or figurative divorce papers, which I assume was more similar to a roommate agreement. I know I can't find reasons for each of the events discussed today, or I would be here forever, but I would like to discuss what I can deduce from the simple oddities in the story, as it may help others with their own advancements in psychological theory. I also wish to declare and justify my hatred for her husband. A standout belief that I developed while researching was that her husband was likely Amish and fairly older than her, and she got too old for him, 19 at the time of the shooting. I could guess this because I found little information on him, and Pennsylvania has a not insignificant Amish community, which in recent years has been uncovered as an exceptionally degenerate and tight-knit community. If you catch my drift, his first name was mysteriously completely unmentioned in all the articles I read. Reporting on this event seems relatively sparse, leaving me to interpret more sinister powers at play. I find statistics are a testimony over all others in crimes of that circular nature. As far as I can tell, she is still alive, and we arrive at the time for our judgment. Snuggle is the obvious choice. Not to mention, the Daily Pennsylvanian had interviewed acquaintances who called her a rebellious nonconformist who was constantly craving acceptance, and spoke of a witty, artistic tomboy with a passion for exotic pets, imported cigars, and funky hairstyles. We do love that here. Now, we must move on, lest eternity surprise us at the end of the video. This will be our first known to police entry. The script does say I'm sure there will be more, and there just weren't. Rather opposite to the last entry, the attack on the Triad Center in Salt Lake City on January 26, 1999, by Dae Kyu-dui is documented comparatively almost to the minute. The then 24-year-old Vietnamese woman, who I am ashamed to admit, thought was a man at first glance, attempted to take control of the newsroom of KSL Broadcasting, which is a division of Bonneville, for a reason which, as far as I can tell, is still unknown. She killed one employee and injured another, while putting anyone in between the entrance she used and the door to the newsroom in danger. Despite joking about it earlier, I really don't know how it would benefit the powers that be if such an attack was successful. Thinking a little bit more, it did increase security for TV studios capable of broadcasting live to networks. If someone or some group wanted to hijack a TV station by capturing a studio, or at least the KSL in the Triad Center, it would certainly be more difficult now than before that day. Even though, let's be honest, if you wanted to do something like that, you'd just do it over the internet and save yourself time, money, and danger. First, given my initial confusion upon beginning research, I'd like to insert a new rule. For pictures, we're going to go off of the time of the shooting and only use before or after pictures for context, Because let's be honest, she kind of looks like a generic Vietnamese woman in this photo, but did look very masculine in others. So where would I put her? Frankly, she clearly has a plethora of mental problems. As I have said, it's the main reason we're here. I would probably feel stronger about this if I was Vietnamese myself, and it's a bit shaky, but I do think she belongs in the snuggle category. Moving forward, these should go a bit faster. Next is Kathleen Rapunt. In 2001, on the 23rd of April, at 36 years old, she simply went ballistic at a bus depot in San Jose. That pun was not on purpose during script writing, but I decided to leave it anyway. She killed 1, injured 3, and targeted 6 others. There are some differing opinions about her character, recorded by the San Francisco Gate in an article titled "Rampage Suspect Mystifies Her Family, Arraignment in San Jose Shootings." Her family claims that this incident was incredibly out of the ordinary, and her demeanor never showed signs of such a thing even being possible. But on the other hand, students that rode her bus described her as quiet but standoffish and accusatory when she wasn't, and it escalated quickly. Her family claims that this incident was incredibly out of the ordinary, and her demeanor never showed signs of such a thing even being a possibility. But on the other hand, students that rode her bus described her as quiet but standoffish and accusatory when she wasn't, and escalated things quickly. If you hadn't noticed, this is our first average shooting. The astute among you already know within yourselves why this event took place. Articles on the event read as if they could have been about an event that occurred yesterday, and sadly, because of this, I could not bring myself to confidently put her in the snuggle category. I should not be laughing at that. Given the circumstances of the event, if I was there and given a weapon of my own, I would most likely, with a heavy heart, do what would have had to have been done in the moment, for the sake of others, as some were unintentionally trapped in a closet. Next is another odd one, Jennifer San Marco. I'll just say here that my source for all of this is https://truecrimearchives.blog/Jennifer San Marco Goleta massacre suicide. Though I have heard this story in the past and will draw from sources I do not remember well, I'll keep it to a minimum or insignificant details. If I was a professional, which I am not, I would say that her minor case of schizophrenic paranoia ballooned dramatically by her time working as a dispatcher for the Santa Barbara Police Department, and not after her firing from the post office in 2003. One of the real points of this video is actually to re-examine some of these cases through a lens which is more centered around causation and not simply declaring the shooter crazy and moving on with our lives, as the mainstream media and most people do these days. So, what do I think really went down? Given the time that San Marco worked at the SBPD, I believe, as dispatchers are, she was exposed to some pretty frightful scenes, which are sure to change even normal people's perception of things through information intake overload, TM, particularly suspect descriptions. According to Status Gnostics, there was a bit of a crime wave at the time, particularly in robberies, thefts, and assault. I believe that the practically mind-melting stream of suspect descriptions altered her perceptions, at least subconsciously, and after her 2003 firing from the post office, she simply broke down. I have never heard about her having a relationship with family or even a lover or spouse. What I mean to say is, having people who would hurt you described to you by people who are often afraid beamed into your brain for 8 hours a day is not a good thing for anyone. Even less if you have no one to make you feel safe. Women being kidnapped by groups of certain people, which surprisingly sometimes include women, to be essentially tortured to death has largely been normalized these days. But in the 90s, people were rightfully afraid of such things. She killed 7 other people that day, and as far as I know, didn't target anyone else, only those of groups she perceived as threatening, making her the best shot so far. She did co-opt the more normal insane person activities after her 2003 firing. Allegedly, she had an imaginary friend, would stop and pray seemingly randomly in the street, but like all decent insane people, would randomly strip down in public places. With the facts down, I do think she belongs in the snuggle category. I truly do not believe anything in this story would have taken place if she had anyone to care for her at all. Or even that it could have stopped quite quickly, even if it had. It's a lot like that newswoman from a few years ago in Detroit, Lauren Podol. One day, she just had enough, and live on air said, "I'm tired of reporting on these people killing one another." It was a tragedy in just about every possible way. Next, we have Latina Williams, the 23-year-old emergency medical technology student of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, who shot and killed 2 classmates and then herself on the 8th of February in 2008. This appears to have the least information about it online so far. As such, I am inclined to believe that only 3 people who knew why such a thing could happen died that day, and that it was over some shared secret which we will never know. Without sounding too blasé about it, I don't think this one could have been stopped by emotional means. What I wrote is all there seems to be. Many articles I read kind of rehashed what little information we do have. Perhaps it was a case of infidelity discovered by one of the victims, as one of them was married, and rather than deal with the familial fallout, she took all 3 lives involved, but not the husband. There are some similarities with a breed of gang shooting in which one homie disrespects another homie and gets killed for it. Then, in a brief moment of clarity, the disrespected homie turns a gun on himself. In fact, despite the event taking place in public, I really don't think it fits the spirit of the video, so I will say that it falls outside the spirit of the concept and just move on. Now for another really, really strange entry. Amy Bishop Anderson. My source will be crimelibrary.org, as it seems to contain the most information in a single place. And it's a lot of information. If this video's concept were different, she could probably occupy 2 entries on this list, as when she was 21, she was accused of shooting and killing her younger brother with a shotgun. Personally, I do believe that that was an accident, despite its peculiar circumstances and future events. She actually ended up as a biology professor at the University of Alabama, and on the 12th of February 2010, during a staff board meeting, pulled a pistol from her bag and shot and killed 3 co-workers, wounding another 3 before her weapon jammed and many had the opportunity to escape. Dinner. Dude, I sure hope I don't end up seeming too red in the video, because I didn't do anything to the camera. It is broadly believed that this incident took place due to Amy being convinced she would not receive a tenured position at the university. This is also backed up by another incident in which a bomb was found in a package on the porch of a tenure committee member returning from vacation in April of 1995. Viewing it through a modern lens, I feel we should also point out that the only dead were people of color, as they say. Frankly, I'm not sure what to make of this all. Perhaps she never felt confident in her position at the university or in life due to the accidental death of her brother in the 80s, and it sent her into a mental spiral culminating in the shooting. Her husband also seemed like a bit of a nut, but this video isn't about that, and in fact, I shouldn't talk about her too much anyway because of it. She's just an interesting character that I felt it would be a disservice to not talk about. Next is Arunya Rauch at a Publix in Tarpon Springs, Florida, on March 30th, 2010, killing 1 co-worker at her former workplace. She was 41 at the time. I'll be honest again, I don't think I've ever seen a Publix before. I guess it's a grocery store chain in southeastern quadrant of the continental United States. Good for them, I guess.
You didn't have to cut me off. Think I like it never happened, and that we were nothing. I don't even need your love, but you treat me like a stranger, and I feel so loved. No, you didn't have to stoop so low. Have your friends collect your records and then change your number. I guess that I don't need that though. Now you're just
Where shopping is a pleasure. The irony is too much. Anyway, allow me to show you the search results for this individual. That's all the search results I have to work with, because I don't care for searching for actual sources. I just search the name. Consider that clip a credit, because that's all I care for. We gotta move through these. From what I gather, she was a disgruntled former employee. Her lawyer went through every single modern violence case. He claimed that she was attempting to commit suicide by cop. He claimed she was suffering mentally after her dismissal, firing for the culturally attuned. He even claimed that she was called that painfully generic slur for East Asian, as if such a thing justifies murder anyway. But if you look at her booking record on the site called InsidePrison.com, it clearly says that her race is white. So why would she be upset? Not many people know this, but Chinese work culture is heavily centered around having a job, no matter what it is. I learned this while watching the Gamers Nexus documentary on NVIDIA graphics cards being smuggled out of the US and into China, where people who were simply working in markets and repair shops were, albeit lightly, interviewed. It is possible that her firing struck her ego exceptionally hard, but I can't really say. This is our most modern case so far. But as she does have a husband, it doesn't fit our criteria, so we'll move on. You know, by the end of this video's research, I will have likely become the world's foremost expert on female mass shooters. I just wanted to point that out. Next, in 2010 again, on September 9th to be more precise, Yvonne Hiller, at 43, was suspended from her job at a Kraft Nabisco cookie plant in Philadelphia and returned with a gun from her car. She then proceeded to shoot and kill 2 co-workers and wounded a third, with 7 staying in danger, unable to escape quickly. She, at least at the time, had convinced herself that her co-workers were attempting to poison her by various means over a stretch of time. That was found to be completely unfounded. Based on information, again, from truecrimearchives.blog, this seems to be an almost completely spur-of-the-moment event, but rather than depression, anger seems to have been the main motivator. She even had a boyfriend at the time. Having no husband does make her viable for this video, so I must assess this incident in that way, I guess. Especially with essentially 7 hostages unknowingly taken. A swift end would likely have been the best outcome. It could have easily been much bloodier than it was in the end. Next, we have our first duo, husband and wife. So I'll try to keep it super short. Allison Renee Miller and her husband, Jared Miller, decided to do a little domestic terrorism, killing 2 police officers at a CC's Pizzeria in a Walmart in Las Vegas, Nevada on June 8th, 2014. Jared actually had a YouTube channel where, as far as I can tell, he often posted anti-government rants because he refused to get a driver's license. My most information-rich article is Wikipedia here, so there's bound to be some absurd, clear inaccuracies. For example, Jared Miller spray-painted a swastika on one of the police officers' corpses, clearly as an anti-government protest, but the Wikipedia editor, who clearly has an IQ below room temperature, has this incident marked as being motivated by white supremacy. For example, he once posted, "We can hope for peace. We must, however, prepare for war. We face an enemy that is not only well-funded, but who believe they fight for freedom and justice. Those of us who know the truth and dare speak it know that the enemy we face are indeed our brothers. To stop this oppression, I fear, can only be accomplished with bloodshed." To someone with an IQ above room temperature, he's clearly referring to fellow Americans when he says our brothers. In an interview with a neighbor from when the couple lived in Indiana, their former neighbor said Jared would often hand out white supremacist literature around town. I have no proof, but I'm almost certain this is what he was referring to. It's a book on libertarian positions. Why can I be sure, you ask? Because to the comically uninformed masses, anything that is radially symmetrical must be a swastika. It's all they know. Most of them don't even know which way the swastika's spokes go, but I digress. Amanda Renee Miller would attempt to take her own life after Jared was killed by police. She was rushed to the hospital, but unfortunately passed away. Why do I speak so empathetically toward her, but refer to Jared with such a subtle resentment? You may wonder. Simple. This is the danger of libertarianism. I've talked about it countless times in any place I can be found online. These people are foolish and reckless with little understanding of anything. They unironically believe that a Chinese sweatshop worker has a better life than someone who needs a driver's license. And the schizophrenic little revolution of Jared Miller cost a lovely 22-year-old her life. Not even truly in a firefight for a brighter future, but at her own hand, scared and alone. We can assume she was a little bit strange, and maybe a bit of a tsundere, finding interest in a 2-bit American idiot. For all this, she died single. If I can't put her firmly in the snuggle category, what is this all for? Next, the only pair of Allah's strongest cave dwellers, both of which were killed by police, but not before costing 14 others their lives and wounding 22 others, with an untold number in danger, in a shooting on December 2nd, 2015. Saeed was born in Chicago, and Malik was born to a landowning family in Pakistan. It appears as if she was North Arabian. Why I cannot escape Pakistanis is a mystery to me. Their weapon purchases were possibly subsidized by the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, or as you may know them now, the State of Syria. Or as you may also recognize them, the CIA, Off-Books Division, also known as ISIS, or if you actually care, maybe, perhaps, the Druze-Kurds Coalition, or perhaps, in more niche circles, the other intelligence agency, or maybe, if you're feeling trapped in a specific time that was about 3 months, QSIS, or inaccurately, just Arabs. Or, no, that's enough. Anyway, back to the topic. There's actually not any evidence they were funded from the outside at all. The 2 attacked a holiday party at a county health department office in San Bernardino County. To name names, the Inland Regional Center. Overall, just a classic terroristic shooting. May or may not have been other organizations involved. Scary black rifles, radicalized overseas. What more could a TV station ask for? Despite dying single, Tashfeen Malik was a radical Muslim, and I cannot put her in the snuggle category because I would probably end up dead. Speaking of which, we now arrive at a truly tragic tale. That tale is, of course, the tale of Nasim Najafi Agdam, at 38 years old, the YouTube shooter of April 3rd, 2018. This is actually the main reason for making this video. No one else died. It's the only entry on this list where that's the case. She made content in 4 different languages and posted on a bunch of different platforms. She was actually quite successful in Iran, where she was born. Topical, I know, but her family fled to Azerbaijan to escape persecution as members of the Baha'i faith, which, frankly, reading about makes it seem not even like a cult, but more like a psyop, akin to the Georgia Guidestones, if you remember those. But it seems like it's not much of a religion, and is more of a political ideology. For example, its Wikipedia page says, at the heart of Baha'i teachings is the desire to establish a unified world order that ensures the prosperity of all nations, races, creeds, and classes. But it does seemingly proclaim the power of the Almighty God, the King of Kings, the Light and the Way, by claiming to venerate all religions, and that Jesus and Muhammad and Buddha were all his messengers. Yeah, it's wacky, but it is classified as an Abrahamic faith, and actually seems a lot closer to Christianity than it might initially seem. For example, leaders tend to occupy themselves trying to figure out how to improve the general population's lives, not unlike priests, but definitely not. It does seem to adhere to the idea of the Abrahamic God's divine plan, so I've always thought it was weird to read about religions that accept Jesus Christ in some way, because, like, if you believe Jesus Christ died for our sins and overcame death, you're kind of just a Christian. If you're an intellectual, such as myself, you've probably seen some of their buildings online, but didn't really know what they were. She was living with her grandmother at the time, and as far as I can tell, had no romantic prospects, which is a shame, but certainly fits with what we've been seeing. She claimed her YouTube channel's reach was being throttled and decided to handle grievances in person. Along the way, 11 hours before the shooting, she interacted with police officers in a Walmart parking lot where she was sleeping in her car on her trip to the YouTube HQ. Apparently, her family was told where she was, but everyone kind of just went along with it. Everyone seems to have seen her as harmless and insignificant, even in her own family. And with the way things turned out, she kind of was. I don't see anyone talking about her anymore. Ever. It's pretty sad. She was pretty, in an odd kind of way, and it really just makes it so much worse. Hey, Obram Editor here. While I was actually editing this section of the video, my autoplay played a video, and guess who showed up? What do you know? Just wanted to point this out. She was what we think of today as just a rabid, militant vegan, but
There was data created in my banks as I was referencing the records. I realized something. I have come to the conclusion that I cannot accept this resolution.
so what do I think she was really? I think she was tired and lonely. She's been through a lot, coming to the US, fleeing persecution in Iran, which I'm pretty sure has died down at this point. At the very least, in 2026, Iran seems to have other things to worry about. Then she and her family made it to America, where most people don't even know what a Baha'i is, let alone care, and things seem to start looking up. She started a YouTube channel making surreal videos, not entirely different from the one you're watching now, and was even quite popular in Iran, as sources say. But after a while, her viewership just kind of fell off. This was in the first age of YouTube censorship, the adpocalypse, as you may remember. Her small but well-loved channel collapsed under her heavy criticism of Islam and YouTube growing algorithmic favorability of third world perspectives. I suspect she never really found her place, even when YouTube was gently helping her along. As I said, as far as I'm aware, she has no romantic prospects and was even somewhat detached from her family. Eventually, it was just likely too much for her, and she decided to take drastic action. She was 38 at the time and just seemed tired of spinning her wheels. The snuggle category almost literally exists for her. Next, we have Christine Perales in Missouri City, Texas. On the 20th of August in 2018, she killed one and injured another before dying in a confrontation with the police at a Benny Keith warehouse. I can't seem to find any real motives for this shooting taking place, and because of my overexposure to psychological hazards and weapons, I am inclined to blame the federal government of the United States of America. If it was them, which I actually don't think it was, it would have been to push for increased security in food storage warehouses, which does kind of make sense, but you could just tell the populace that it could easily be poisoned and force higher security measures. It also appears to be quite a tragedy with little reason, so I'll just keep her in the snuggle category. Next is our first FTM shooter, Snokia Mosley, shooting up a Rite Aid distribution facility in Aberdeen, Maryland on the 21st of September in 2018 at 26 years old. She had worked part-time as a security guard at the facility, but one day seems to have simply snapped. She was diagnosed with acute schizophrenia and had a history of violence with her older girlfriend, Sharon Forrest. I will not comment on this further. If you know, you know. It's claimed it stemmed from money problems and stress, but as far as I'm aware, now being more educated on the topic than most, I found that mass shootings tend to stem from social issues, and assassination stems more from personal issues such as money. For example, Luigi Mangione wasn't a social outcast. He felt financially wronged by the United Way healthcare company, and as such, targeted one single person. I cannot confidently put this character in the snuggle category. Next, we have Maya McKinney attacking the Castle Rock, Colorado STEM school Highlands Ranch on May 7th, 2019. Similar to our first duo shooting, this one appears to have been largely set in motion by the biological male in the relationship, Devin Erickson. Devin Erickson, it seems, may have played a part in encouraging Maya's transition, but that's simply conjecture. She was also 17 at the time, so I will not give her a proper spot on the list. As far as I can tell, the one who was killed in the incident was killed by Devin, so she's practically not eligible anyway. It all seems to have been spurred by a desire to be accepted by Devin, who seems to have had the real mental illness in the relationship, and perhaps academic pressure. Moving on, Francine Graham with David Anderson attacked a kosher market in Jersey City on December 10th, 2019. Both died in a shootout with police after killing 5 and injuring 3. I actually remember how this whole thing started, which you likely won't find reported anywhere. Back in 2019, on 4chan, an operation was set in motion. I believe it was titled something along the lines of Operation Free the Golems, in which 4chaners would make burner accounts on Twitter, now X, and post information about Jewish involvement in the American slave trade, such as how they owned the boats and how most Jews owned slaves, while most whites didn't. Much of the information posted by these accounts is still in circulation today. Having a companion, I will not put Francine Graham on the charts. Next, we have Audrey Hale, our last FTM shooter, in the penultimate entry on this list. She attacked her former school on March 27th, 2023 at 28 years old. It is a Presbyterian church school called the Covenant School, which she allegedly had fond memories of and intended to die in at the hands of police. Her manifesto seems to imply that she just never could fit in and thought transgenderism would make her feel more free in herself. She was quite tomboyish and said things in her manifesto such as, "I hope to make the Columbine shooters proud." As an edgy individual myself, I think I could say that after producing this abomination of a video. It comes off as edgy, but without direction or purpose. Like, she performed well in school, but life just never really happened. Unfulfilling job out of college straight out of school, but no romantic prospects or friends. That sounds awfully sympathetic to myself. Obviously, I'm not going to kill any kids, but I haven't irreparably damaged my body either. She killed 6, including 3 children, but I do think it could have been easily avoided. In reading about Audrey Hale, it seems that much of her family cut her off as she transitioned, offering hollow words of encouragement and things of the sort. No one seems to have reached out to her in any meaningful capacity, and it all could have been stopped so easily. I don't think I need to place that one. I think it's obvious. Finally, we have Natalie Rupnow. At a glance, in research, this one is truly the ultimate entry. It will take everything I have learned throughout the course of this video to analyze this case, although she was a minor and will not get a real spot. Painfully, it seems that this is the simplest case of them all. Autism in women, for those who don't know, almost always develops from abuse, and as we know now, in minor cases, manifests as admiration for certain aesthetics. For example, it's basically how the black sun was pulled forth from antiquity. I'll rip off the band-aid now. So, what if a young lady happened to find the aesthetic of the Columbine shooters exceedingly appealing, and already struggled with her place in the world as a 15-year-old girl? It was a powder keg from the start, and as autists with socially unacceptable thoughts often do, they veil the thoughts almost perfectly to those around. I myself have been guilty of this, but I actually open up much better online. Many autists struggle with social situations, but some are autistic to such a minor degree that they become social chameleons, even to their own families. And that's the video. The last 30 years of shootings perpetrated by women, categorized by whether or not I would snuggle with them. I can't believe I did that. Now I'll be a little bit more freeform. Is it really a surprise that all of them took place in the US? No, it is not. No, it is not. It is not shocking. What else can be said? What else can be said? Maybe I'll add some filler, but I can do that during editing. Follow or don't. I stream on Kick and Twitch every day. See ya. Dude, my throat is sore now. That was huge.